Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday morning addiction and recovery webinar hosted by myself, Scott Brassart, and my colleague there, Tami VerHelst. Tami and I alternate topics every month. Tami gave us a great topic last month, resentments. My cat is playing with, here, go get it. um, um, she gave us a great topic last month with resentments, and as we were doing that, I was thinking, wow, we really need to talk about grief and forgiveness related to resentment. So that's going to be our topic this month. In particular, we're going to be addressing resentments related to infidelity and the relational strife that occurs with infidelity, not just for betrayed partners, but also for addicts. Both sides will come up with a lot of resentments. Um, and by the way, this is a webinar and we do Q&A at the end, so type your questions into the Q&A at any time. So how we respond to resentments, first we have to kind of grieve the losses, and then we work toward forgiveness. So we've talked about grief before, so I'm going to go through that fairly quickly. But I do want to identify the primary loss that we're going to be talking about today, which is the loss of relationship trust. And both sides of a relationship impacted by infidelity will develop almost inevitably some resentments related to loss of relationship trust. Betrayed partners are like, how could you do that to me? How can I ever trust anything you've ever said, let alone anything you say or do right now? And addicts are like, well, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. Why won't you start trusting me again? And we can get very resentful about that. And, relationship trust is a huge loss. The cornerstone of romantic relationships in particular, but any healthy relationship is I trust you, you trust me. And when that goes away, it's a loss and we can get really resentful for it. So we need to grieve that loss. So that's what I want to talk about first is grieving the loss. So there are 5 stages of grief, according to Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I'll go through those quickly here because I want to spend most of our time on forgiveness. But the first one is what we call denial. And by the way, these stages are, I'm going to present them as if they're linear. They're not. We bounce around. We can be in multiple stages at the same time, but ultimately we do want to work our way through them. So the first stage is what we call denial. It's just this shock. The problem feels external. It's not real. And both parties will get this. Both the addict and the betrayed partner will be like, no, not us. This can't be. There's this moment of that. I have an uncle, big bear of a man. He was a state trooper up in Central California. Great personality, and just a kind-hearted soul. And because of who he was as a person, he was the guy who always got sent to the house after the fatal accident. Yeah, and I asked him about that once, and I said, how do people respond? And he said, they immediately say, no, you're at the wrong house. That's not my daughter. She's asleep in her room. I will, and they'll drag him in and show him the empty bed. There's this people shut down. Nope, not me. Usually after discovery, we'll call it, there's that flash of anger, and then both sides will kind of shut down sometimes for a day or two. That's the denial. Then comes the anger. That's stage 2 of grief. Anger, hostility, defiance. There's power struggles. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. No, I'm not. No, neither party is logical in this stage. If anger is not acceptable, if you're one of those people for whom anger is not acceptable, you'll feel guilty about the anger you're having, which just makes it worse. And this is when resentments start to form and foment a little bit. Like, you have screwed up my vision of our relationship, and you're not accepting it. You're getting mad at me, and the addicts will have similar things. I mean, that's usually the betrayed partner, but addicts will get them, and we start getting resentful. It's hidden. The resentments are hidden in the fiery anger, in the moment anger, but the resentments are starting there. Then we bargain. This is stage three, bargaining. We're compromising. We're trying to find the easy way out. And both parties will try to avoid pain. I don't like feeling this way. Give me something so that we don't have to feel, can we go back to normal? Addicts are like, just give me one more chance. I'll never do this again, et cetera, et cetera. Um, you know, um, and what happens sometimes is partners will say, if you do this, this, and this, I'll forgive you. We'll talk about forgiveness later, because they're sort of misusing forgiveness there. And addicts are like, can't you, if I do this, this, and this, you have to forgive me. This is the bargaining. And what it leads to is the checking of boxes rather than actual recovery by the addict and actual healing by um, by the betrayed partner. And addicts need to recover, betrayed partners need to heal. I mean, this is a relational traumatic injury. It's not a physical injury, but it's definitely an injury, and healing is needed. So a lot of times the addicts are giving superficial compliance, and resentments just grow with this. It's like, you're going to your meetings, but I'm not seeing any changes. And the addict will say, I'm going to my meetings and you're still screaming at me. And we start getting really, really angry and resentful with each other. And yet we still bargain trying to get out of the pain. Eventually, we usually hit depression, stage 4, hopeless, all is lost, a lot of why me from both parties. This is never going to be fixed. This is never going to be made right. And resentments really, really start to fester at this stage. It's the in the moment anger is now turning into this long-term smoldering resentment that we talked about last month when Tami was speaking. And hopefully after all of this and bouncing back and forth between those stages, we get to acceptance. Acceptance for me, I always pictured grief as when I was young, we used to drive from Indiana to Philadelphia to see my grandparents, and we would take the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And if you've ever been on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, it's beautiful, but there are these really long tunnels through the mountains. And I mean, they're like miles long. Maybe they're not, but in my child's mind, they were like 20 miles long. They're probably like 2 miles long or something. But you'd go into them and it's pitch black. It's not pitch black. They've got those horrible fluorescent lights, but it feels pitch black. And you're driving along and it feels like you're going and going, and it's just pitch black. And these are the early stages of grief, denial, anger. It's like, oh, and then finally you see this pinpoint of light. And you're like, is that a pin? You're looking, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden you pop out into the sunlight. And suddenly you're in these mountains and there's like flowers and grass and trees and animals, and it's beautiful. It's life. That's what acceptance is like. The fifth stage of grief, acceptance. It's like, poof, oh, there's a world out here again. And that's where we want to get to. Acceptance it was when we acknowledge and surrender to reality. Like, yep, that happened. Yep, it hurt. Yep, we're angry. Yep, we need to move forward one way or another. That's acceptance. We start dealing with what is. We stop fighting everything. We stop denying everything. We stop bargaining. We're just like, okay, these are the facts. Let's move forward. And when we move forward, we can start living in ways that reflect our values, that have some integrity. And most importantly, when we're talking about the resentments that come with infidelity, acceptance means we can forgive. I'm going to hope I'm still here. Oh, did I freeze? Okay, I froze. So I knew it was me.
It was a little warbly, but we're here.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we can start to live our values, and most importantly, from the standpoint of what we're talking about today, is we can start letting go of resentments related to the pain of the infidelity. And these are very natural resentments. I mean, that they're going to come along. Don't beat yourself up if you're still carrying this lingering anger, either side of the equation. But to get over that, you need to forgive. And forgiveness, a huge benefit of going through the grief process and getting to acceptance is we can forgive. Forgiveness it's a crucial component of personal growth after injury. If we want to attain emotional health and heal after emotional injury, we need to be able to, at least eventually, forgive the person who has hurt us. One of the things that people get wrong about forgiveness is almost everybody, not everybody, but most people think if you hurt me and I forgive you, it's to absolve you. It's about you. And that is not what forgiveness is. Tammy's like, and she's right. Forgiveness is for my benefit. If I'm forgiving you, it's so I can move on. Maybe you get some absolution. Maybe you feel better. Not really my problem. I'm going to forgive you because I need to move on. That's why I forgive you. Or that's why I'm going to try to forgive you. All right. Forgiveness does not absolve you of your crimes. You still did it. You still hurt me. And I am still going to remember that. But I'm not going to let the pain of that continue to eat at me. I'm not going to carry the resentments. I'm not going to let you live rent-free in my head anymore. I'm going to let go. This is the point of forgiveness. So there's 5 stages. 5 stages, just like grief, 5 stages. Forgiveness, stage number 1, recognition. We acknowledge the hurt or the harm that has been inflicted. This is surrendering to reality. This is acceptance. Acceptance for grief and recognition for forgiveness are the same stage. This is what happened. This is how it impacted me. I was angry. I was sad. I felt betrayed. I felt unwanted. I felt mistrusted. All this stuff. Sometimes we can struggle, especially betrayed partners will struggle to accept the fact that they've been wrong. They start blaming themselves. We need to if we're going to forgive, we have to put blame where blame goes, and blame is on the injuring party, not the injured party. So it's a reality check again. And we have to really, this stage is essential. If I don't recognize the truth, anything I do after this toward forgiving is going to be tainted. I need to know what happened and how I was hurt. Okay. Once I fully understand and accept that, I can move on. So this is on the injured party. I need to really, sometimes this is why we need, if I'm a betrayed partner, why I might want to go to a therapist, or why I might want to go to a support group, why I might need to reach out to others who've been through this, because my thinking is garbled when I'm injured. I mean, relational trauma it puts us in crisis, and people in crisis don't always think clearly. So we need to reach out for help. Tammy's great at recommending help. So by the way, if you're not sure what to turn, please reach out to Tami. So stage 1, recognition of the truth. This is what happened. This is how I was hurt. Then we stage 2 is responsibility. And again, responsibility doesn't mean we blame ourselves for being hurt. It means we're going to take responsibility for our own process of healing. I didn't do this to myself. You did it to me, or somebody did it to me. But my healing is my healing, and I have to do it. It's similar to an addict. All kinds of crap happened when I was a kid, and that's why I'm an addict. And I'm never going to argue with anybody about that. I mean, that's the truth. Addicts are created, not born. But betrayed partners, I got hurt. but it's up to me to heal. My addict, it's up to him or her to recover and heal through their trauma. But I gotta heal my own trauma. So while I can't change what happened, I can change how I respond to it. There's a passage about acceptance in the AA Big Book. I know Tami knows this one. I'm gonna actually read it right now because this is so on target with responsibility. So this is on page 417, I think, in the AA Big Book. So acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I'm disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept my life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. And it's that last sentence that gets me every time. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. And this is stage 2 of forgiveness, responsibility. I am carrying anger. I don't like how this feels. I need to take responsibility for my anger. I didn't cause my anger. Somebody else caused it. But it's my anger. I got to take responsibility. You know, I need to understand that I can't change what happened, but I have control over how I respond to it. This is when I empower myself to take charge of my own well-being. I'm going to repeat that. This is when I empower myself to take charge of my own emotional well-being. You know, that's stage 2. Stage 3 is release. This stage is where I start letting go of the emotions, you know, that are associated with the hurt. This doesn't mean I forget what happened. This doesn't mean I condone the behavior. It means I'm choosing to let go of the hold these emotions have on me. We talked last week about resentments, about the Uncle Screwtape letters. You know, when you get under somebody's skin, you own a piece of their soul forever. Well, this is where I take the fish hook out of my skin and say, go fish somewhere else. You don't own me anymore. Holding on to resentments and anger is detrimental to our health. It's detrimental to our well-being. We talked about this last month. You know, this stage we might write letters and burn them, or you know, we don't typically send these letters, but you know, we do some kind of ritual to release them. This stage is where we find some peace and we make room for positive emotions to return to our life. You know, and this is a powerful stage. And addicts often need to do this too in relation to their early life trauma. So this stuff is applicable to both betrayed partners and addicts. I'm talking about it in terms of mostly loss of relationship trust, but this has wide applications. Stage 4 is rebuilding. After we release our negative emotions, which is a process, not an event, by the way, it takes time. After we release them, we can start to rebuild our life and our relationships. We learn from what happened. We strengthen our emotional resilience. And if possible, and if desired, we repair the relationship where the injury occurred. If possible, and if desired, which means not every relationship is going to be repaired. Rebuilding might mean setting healthier boundaries and moving on in certain ways. You know, but if we want to stay together, you know, we're going to rebuild trust. We're going to set new expectations, boundaries, and we're going to work to foster open communication. But you know, rebuilding in this way is not always possible. It's not always necessary. Sometimes forgiveness means moving on without reconciling. Um, most relationships are worth salvaging. That's why we got into them in the first place. There is some good there. And in those cases, rebuilding means creating healthier, more balanced dynamics. And then the last stage is renewal. This stage signifies a new beginning. It's about integrating the lessons we've learned from this experience and coming out the other side stronger and more compassionate and more empathetic. It's like grief popping out of that tunnel. It's like, oh, life happens again. This is where we want to get. We want to get to renewal. It's a shift in perspective where we see the value of letting go of our pain and our anger. Where we actually enjoy the fact that we've let go of this stuff and we can fully experience life again. Again, empathy, understanding, compassion toward the person who hurt you, maybe, but to people in general. Forgiveness ultimately should transcend the specific pain incident and become a part of your overall self. When we learn to let go of the fact that other people make mistakes and do things that are hurtful, we can walk through life. We're a lot happier and a lot kinder, and it makes it much easier to live our own values. So again, if you hurt me and I forgive you, I'm being selfish when I forgive you. I'm doing it for me. If it helps you too, great, nice. but I'm not doing it for you. I have forgiven people who don't even know I've forgiven because I had to move on. And it's a relief. So I encourage everybody to this is all a process. Grief is a process. Forgiveness is a process, but it is worth the walk. It's a rocky path, but it's worth the walk. So that's all I've got. Tami, do you have thoughts here?
I highlighted stuff, of course. So, but life is a process. We're talking about these. Life is a process. So these are tools along life's way. And you mentioned the rebuilding if it's desired, but you also commented that there are people that you forgave that don't even know. I would say, I was kind of reflecting that the biggest resentments I had that were that needed the most attention were not primary relationships. They were other people that are not part of my life, but I was still hanging on to that stuff. So
we're getting some feedback on your microphone. Do you have paper rubbing against your microphone or something? Maybe.
I'll take these out and see if that helps.
Okay.
Today, that doesn't mean that, Amazon won't.
That's better.
Sorry. Okay. That's right. I need to replace my AirPods. I probably have worn out a set. Anyway, so I was saying, though, the biggest resentments that I had were people that I don't continue to be in a relationship with, and they were eating me alive. Like the mental energy I was spending, they were on their merry way, so it was problematic. I love that you empower myself to take charge of my own emotional well-being. That is exactly, and it's both sides of any relationship. Dr. Eddie, and I've referred to this one a lot, last September quoted Gabor Mate of like, you can't make whatever happened unhappen. Right. Okay. So that's part of that reality check that you were talking about. I can't, that's a reality that happened. How I choose to move forward with it is really key. I was also thinking, like it's forgiveness of self, like from a partner standpoint, if you're taking on the shame of whatever, how did I not know, whatever, how did, or the addict, like, part of, we talked before about the 12 steps, and part of working through the steps is that we understand who and what we are, and we forgive ourselves for the things that we've done, in that way, and work on that, continuing to do those again. I really, acknowledge and surrender to reality. Like that is, I mean, yes, that is acceptance and that is the beginning of forgiveness, but that is a hard place to get to, because all of
Mhm.
those defenses you were talking about of the denial and the anger and I mean, all of those things, keep us from getting there. So it is in being intentional about doing the work, along the process. And then one more thing I was thinking, like the forgiveness, I listen to lots of crime podcasts. That's my thing.
That's her guilty secret.
It is. I told my husband I want to go to Crime Con, and he's like, "What?" So anyway, so we'll see. But that was kind of like he had no clue why I would want to do that. But I'm interested. But when I'm listening to a podcast and it talks about someone, the family, I mean, it's often someone who was murdered, and they are at the trial, for someone, and they stand up and say, I forgive you for what you did. And I know for sure that was for them because they were not going to let that person have a hold on their life. It wasn't that they are okay with what happened on any level. It is they are acknowledging that if I hang on to this, it will continue to hurt me, for the long haul. But it's always amazing. I mean, like I mean, I'm not minimizing betrayal trauma in any way, but I'm also going, wow, when someone's able to, stand up in court and do that. And I thought, I honestly don't know if I could do that. I would hope that I could get there, but I don't know. So
Yeah.
okay, so we've got some questions, Scott. Um, uh, this person has recently joined the Porn Addiction 101, and the concept of not porn blew me away. I thought I'd been sober for the past 6 months, but I realized had it only transferred what I was looking. Does it still show any sign of progress that this has happened, especially when masturbation is out of the equation? Great question.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. And this is a point of why these work groups are so important, because whatever we think or whatever, and then someone says something and you go, oh, so please share.
Yeah, first of all, for those of you who don't know what not porn is, not porn is not porn, but we use it like it's porn. It's it's the bikini pics, it's the low cut dresses. Oh, I'm going to see what so and so wore to the award show. It's we're using it like it's porn. Game of Thrones for me, it's a show I can't watch. It's a lot of pretty people not wearing a lot of clothes. You know, being sexual with each other. I call it porn with dragons. I mean, it's not porn, but I can't watch it. And I know I can't watch it. So that's not porn. A lot of porn addicts will say, oh, I haven't looked at porn in 6 months, like this gentleman. And yeah, I've been looking at not porn and using it like porn for 6 months. Um, Sex addiction, porn addiction, these are fantasy driven addictions. It's all about sexual fantasy. Sexual fantasy is what gets us high. And you're in my PA 101 group. So we'll cover this in part two. We cover the neurobiology, but it is the fantasy that gets us high.
Mhm, mhm,
It's not the masturbation, it's the fantasy that gets us high. So if you're looking at not porn and getting, the neurochemical rush from it, that's not sober. And I'm glad you're asking this question. I'm glad you're self-aware enough to go, oh, I thought I was doing great. And I mean, look, you were doing better. Um, but ultimately, with porn addiction, we need to cut porn and not porn out of our lives completely. Um, so you were making progress, yes. And I will pat you on the back for that progress. And I will pat you on the back for recognizing, oh, it wasn't quite as much progress as I thought. So yeah. Anything to add, Tammy, here?
Well, the only thing is, so on Seeking Integrity under the work group tab, you'll see those. And the Porn Addiction 101 and Sex Addiction 101 just started last Saturday. And we
Yeah.
often have people that join those having missed the first week. So email me. I put my email in the chat, but it's Tami, Tami at seekingintegrity.com. I have to manually add people to those groups. We also had the betrayed partner group starting like right now. And so again, separate, but from a
Yeah.
codependent lens.
And
We offer a number of work groups, and those many therapists suggest those that people participate in them, because it's what you don't get in regular therapy, even
Yeah.
with a CSAT. Like, this is the psychoeducation. They're not just watch a bunch of videos. Scott is teaching, both sex addiction 101 and porn addiction 101, and they're talking about this, have homework, etc. So really key to helping move forward. Anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, since you resonated with the word empowering yourself earlier. We have a women's retreat that takes place 3-4 times a year, and we call it our Empowered Women Retreat for this very reason, because when you set boundaries, which is most of the focus of the retreat, but also forgive things, it is empowering. It's
Mhm.
taking control of your own life. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that along
Thank
with
you.
the
And
betrayal
yes,
partner work group.
we have women that are registering for the October 24th through
Yeah.
27th. They, and I've shared on other webinars, they look different from Thursday when they arrive to Saturday. We're done on Sunday, but on Saturday, like, they're laughing. They're like, I haven't laughed this much. They are in their bodies. They are like, they're not focused on him. It's like, I can't change him. How do I work on me and healing me? And it's amazing to see in 2 days what, from Thursday night to Saturday night, how they're shifting, and then they continue to connect and have the ability to have, ongoing, weekly accountability online. So there's more. Email me if you've got questions, but you'll see that. I'll actually put a link in the chat too. So, okay, Scott, the next one. My essay has dragged me through 18 months of discovery with several CSATs and no disclosure. Finally, a month ago, on the verge of disclosure with another therapist, he quit again and started another. Suddenly, after the first meeting, he was criticizing my prefrontal cortex, my fault, not his lack of truthful disclosure. Meeting two, my trauma therapist and my CSAT were wrong for me and doing me no good. Third meeting, I found the last therapist work on him on disclosure. Third meeting with a new therapist, she drafted a new disclosure for him, nothing like the one from 2 weeks previous. Facts omitted, vagueness. I told him I was not comfortable with him working with her, and he refuses to leave her. It must be a great comfort in all the shame to have someone tell him that his betrayed partner is the problem. Yes, that's called codependence. I'm so betrayed in so many ways for decades, and I feel like my husband should be thinking first about my comfort and security rather than his own. How to manage this with a hard boundary? Please. So Scott will answer about what your husband is doing, but yeah, exactly. Like, I don't hear any boundaries for you, and boundaries are not controlling him. Like, boundaries are for your safety. I hear how hurt you are and how dysregulated this is, and that he, and now this new therapist that he probably likes, because this one's colluding with him. But that empowered women's retreat, that the internal boundaries, like, most people don't even know, what do you mean by internal boundaries? Internal boundaries and external boundaries, and we talk about that and we practice them. It isn't just, do a worksheet. It's like, what do you need for your boundaries? But this is a lot of data, and I don't see any safety in here, and no addict changes until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. And right now he can just keep flitting around, to different CSATs. So I'm going to pull up the Empowered Women's Retreat link. But Scott, thoughts?
Yeah, and also the betrayed partner work group if you can't do the
True.
retreat,
Yes, I will
one or the
add
other of
that too.
those. Yeah, I'm 18 months from D-Day with no disclosure is way too long. Your addict is dragging his feet. Usually by the 6-month mark, you should have full therapeutic disclosure. Um, he's therapist swapping, he's delaying, um, blaming you. These are all typical addict behaviors. There's a lot of denial here. It sounds like, I'm only getting half of the story. I'm getting your half. You might tell a different story, but I suspect that there's a lot of denial and a real, I talked about the checking boxes, the bargaining stage of grief. It feels like maybe he's checking some boxes, but not really doing the work. And I agree with Tami. For your emotional safety, you will need to set boundaries and hold them. And some of those boundaries might be, we're going to have a therapeutic separation until I see some actual work from you. Um, you know, um, yeah, I mean, I don't like when betrayed partners get involved with the addict's therapist, and I don't like when addicts get involved with the betrayed partner's therapist. This is not good. We call this triangulation. His therapist is his, your therapist is yours, but you work with your therapist or your support network to set healthy boundaries. And hopefully his therapist will get him on the right track. If it's a CSAT, there, the other thing I will tell you is guys will go to their CSAT and then they'll come home and completely lie to their partner about what happened in their CSAT session. So that may be happening too, because I don't know any CSAT who would write a disclosure for a client.
I actually have heard that.
Have you? Oh my God.
Yeah, I was going to say there are CSATs I don't refer to, and
okay.
Yeah,
this
there
might be
are
one.
some that, yeah, they're just because
Yeah.
they're a CSAT and have the letters does not make them a good therapist. That
Okay.
said,
Yeah.
the good therapists who are CSATs are the ones that are helpful.
Yeah.
But this feels
Yeah.
like he's shopped until he found one that,
Yeah. So I don't know, but my advice to you is the same as Tammy's. You're going to have to empower yourself for your process of healing with or without him. Because right now he's not along for the ride. And he may or may not ever come along for the ride, sadly.
yes. Yeah. And even the comment about, and feel like my husband should be thinking first about my comfort and security rather than his own. No, he is like he may not be acting out because you are saying 18 months. I would be less, positive that he hasn't continued to act out on some
Right.
thing, like we were just talking about non-porn. Many addicts are using other things, and whether it's gaming or
Right.
not porn or food or whatever it is, to still manage, uncomfortable feelings. And lots of people go, my husband is a narcissist. And we always say in addiction, any form of addiction is narcissistic traits,
Right.
because we have to be self-centered and self-focused to be able to hang on to that problematic behavior, because we don't know how to navigate life. But I hear someone again, that there have not been consequences for his behavior that have been negative enough that he is willing to change. You being mad at him, and this is with all due respect, but I always say it's like the Charlie Brown, on the teacher going wah 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 wah.
Yeah.
Like that's the background noise. He knows you're mad at him, and he loves you probably like to the best of his ability. There's the paradox, but he is not willing yet to let go of these problematic behaviors and that, numbing out, escaping, dissociating. But so, perhaps an option would be, you want a formal therapeutic disclosure or not. Not every couple needs one. It's bad. And right now he's still lying and minimizing. So doing one too early, you end up doing 9 of them, like literally have heard that 9 disclosures, that's not what you want either. So if he's not yet able to show up, actually, here's what I really recommend. We have a residential treatment program for guys just like him, 14, 21, or 28-day length of stay. He would not be a 14-day length of stay. Just saying, just from what you shared. I will put the link in for our residential treatment program. And that might be, since you're unable to do the disclosure, I need that, or a formal therapeutic separation, like what do you need for your safety, emotional, physical, financial, spiritual, to be okay? Because this is chaos and painful. So yeah, we have support sessions, 25 or 50 minutes. Scott and I and a couple of colleagues both do those. So you'll find those on our site too. Sometimes those can be helpful, and we're not overriding a CSAT, but when people are looking for some specific guidelines, we get a lot of positive comments, on those too. Okay, Scott, the next, and somebody asked about where to find the previously recorded webinars. They are on our site. I put the direct link in the chat as well. Okay, Scott, I've told my essay many ways in which he has made me feel unsafe and what he can do to increase my security, which I need to have before I can go forward with recovery and forgiveness. He wants the full relationship and all the trust back, but still is not willing to do things I've asked to give me security, fear of financial repercussions since he controls all of the assets, and not working with a therapist that refuses to have any contact with me and who tells me him that he's doing everything and I'm not regulated. I am in crisis. The truth was decades hidden and he is playing the victim. I want to just tag on because Scott said, I agree not having one therapist do things, but having collateral information, because yeah, addicts lie and minimize, to their therapist. So yes, bringing you in occasionally just for some information, or receiving some
Right.
information. But yes, this is blame shifting to you that you're not regulated. How could you be regulated when all of these things are happening and you're not safe? So um, uh, all of the things I said about healthy boundaries for the last one, ditto.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say same answer to the last question applies here too. Similar situation, and sadly, this happens all too often. And what I would add is you may want to, even if you're not thinking about divorce, you may want to consult with an attorney who handles things like this, so that you can find out what your rights are, especially with finances. And I will add, we have a special webinar coming up on
Next
2 weeks
Sunday,
from today.
no, next Wednesday.
Oh, next
No, no,
Wednesday?
no, you're
Oh,
right.
two
Thank you.
weeks.
I'm so confused. It's 2 weekends or 2 Wednesdays from now. We've
Right.
got someone who does mediation, and then the end of October, we've got an
Yeah.
attorney to, so, and this is not like you have to go file. This is like just
Right.
information for you.
Information.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, and unfortunately, I hear this often where the addict has all of the control of the financial assets, and it's sad because, like, how can you be a partner in a relationship if somebody has that level of control over you? And so, that would be part of the for my safety, I need these things. But if you
right.
don't have any consequences to a boundary, and they're not a control, but if it's not, and the challenge with boundaries other than domestic violence, they are so individualized. There's some,
Right.
there's some kind of financial things, physical things, get an STD test, whatever, there's some things. That said, like, there needs to be, if you are unwilling to do that, then, I'm going to sleep in the other room, or I'm going to get a separate apartment. I don't, like, it has to be individualized, but there needs to be some meat on it, because otherwise it'll be just like, well, whatever, you can be mad at me and be harping on me, and I'm using that language, about the finances, but I still have control of the finances, so.
Yeah.
Okay. My biggest resentment is the one person I trusted the most betrayed me, lied to me, and from before we married. He knew he was a sex addict from his prior relationship. I'd like to forgive and move forward, but we have actually never had a marriage. He had porn-induced erectile dysfunction early on and continued acting out throughout. He isolated me from family and friends and now is doing the work, though only sober as of now, according to him. How do I trust? Is there something I can do to help him do better in recovery? I'm doing my best on myself.
Okay. Betrayed partners, I'm going to tell you this once and I'll tell you a million times. You cannot fix him. As much as you love him, as much as you want to help him get well, it's up to him. He has to make change. Now, if you're going to trust him again, he's going to have to earn it. This is what I tell the guys that I work with. Rigorous honesty. Tell the truth, tell it faster. Tell the whole truth, not just the part your partner already knows about. Tell them stuff, even if they're going to get angry. Tell them the truth before they ask, and don't hold anything back, because that's how you re-earn trust. And, I said the biggest resentment we have, what we're going to talk about today, is the loss of trust. I mean, there's research to this. Dr. Rob and a couple other therapists did research. Betrayed partners, it's not so much what the addict did, it's the lies and secrets and manipulation that cover it up. That's the most hurtful thing. And it's the hardest to forgive. So you're right on schedule. You're right on target here, in terms of how am I ever going to forgive this guy? I said forgiveness is a process. I mean, you're going to have to grieve it first. I mean, you thought you could trust this guy. the one person you trust the most stuck a knife in your back and twisted it. I'm sorry, that's what happened. You know, this is surrendering to reality. And the reality is you don't trust him right now. He hurt you and you don't trust him. And he's telling you he's sober, but you're not sure. You're right where you're supposed to be at this point. You know, you're at that beginning of the forgiveness process. You're accepting the reality, and there's more steps. But you know, for if he would like you to forgive, so that you can move on and maybe he can feel a little better about himself, he's going to have to earn it. You know, I always tell the addicts, they're like, what can I do to get my partner to forgive me? And I'm like, first of all, you have no control over whether your partner forgives you or not. What you have control over is keeping your side of the street clean consistently for a very long time so that they can start to trust you again. And it's going to take a year, usually. That's Dr. Rob's estimate, is a year or more before trust is relatively restored. And it's never going to be as unconditional as it was. So yeah, I don't think my answer is probably what you wanted to hear. But here's the thing, you know, you need to heal yourself, and hopefully he will finally work on his addiction and get sober and become rigorously honest. Until he does, the best you can do is set boundaries to stay safe. And I'm sure Tammy thoughts, I mean,
Oh yeah, I'm doing my best on myself. Excellent.
yeah,
How do I trust you? Trust is rebuilt over time by his actions. You know, like what do? You watch and see. It's what are
yeah.
his actions? Never lip service, because our lips can lie. So
And trust your gut. If your gut says he's bullshitting me, guess what? He's probably bullshitting you. Trust your gut.
yeah. And is there something I can do to help him do better in recovery? The only thing I would say is Debbie McCrae on one of the previous, has talked about the 4-part talking boundary. And we talk about that a lot in the Empowered Women's Retreat too. But I understand that's your reality, but da 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 da, and just not, and I'm assuming female, but so, but if you can't mother him, like you can't, like he's not a 4-year-old. This is like our recovery program is our work. We have got to step up and do the work. Otherwise, if I I too often, and I have just experienced more this week, of someone trying to do everything for the addict and it's not working. It's a miserable fail. They're both not doing well, So at some point, I step up and like, it's data. When somebody's not doing what they need to do, what do I need to do as a betrayed partner to take care of myself? What do I need to do for my recovery program? We get a daily reprieve from our addiction. We don't get a magical cure and all fixed. And the more I'm willing to put the work in at the beginning to get that solid foundation, the stronger the house I build is. That's just the reality. It's not as likely to blow away in the wind. But for you, I focus on the last tag of this. I'm doing the best I can for me. What does that mean? What is your plan for your healing? What are you actively doing? Like you're here, so hopefully you've either done our betrayed partner work group, or if you want to join for next week, please do. But what are you doing? What connections do you have for your healing? Are you seeing a qualified therapist that actually knows what they're doing with this stuff?
Yeah,
That's what, it isn't just, I mean, I love that you're here, but this is being talked at, rather than
yeah,
talked with. So
yeah.
okay, Scott, this one we hear a lot. I can't forgive myself for all the lies I've told and harm I've caused. I know this is my responsibility to take ownership of moving forward, but how do I forgive these unforgivable actions?
I will tell you my personal experience with unforgivable actions. I have to reckon, stage one, recognition, acknowledge the hurt or harm that I have inflicted, face the pain, understand its impact on my life and other people's lives, recognize the emotions associated with it. Stage two, responsibility. Um, you know, take responsibility for my own healing. You know, that means get sober, change my behavior, live differently. Um, stage 3 release. I did some rituals releasing my self-hatred over things I had done. This doesn't mean I'm okaying them. It doesn't mean I'm, you know, I'm
Minimizing.
still
Yeah.
I'm still aware of what I did. I'm not happy about it, but I'm not going to let it eat at me. You know, and I do this, I forgive myself so that I can move forward as a better person. And this is what addiction recovery is ultimately about, is moving forward as a better person. The amends we make, step 9 is making amends. The amends we make is, particularly with sex addiction, is a living amends almost always. um, I am not going to behave that way again with the people I hurt before or anyone else. For me also, it's, I try to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. um, I did some things that were unforgivable. I'm not happy about that. But I don't wake up in pain over that anymore. I did the work of acknowledging it, um, taking responsibility for my own process of healing so that I don't do those things again, and releasing the in the moment pain and self hatred, so that I can get on with my life as a better person. I can rebuild and renew. Um, it's not easy. The hardest person to forgive, I think, is ourselves, um, particularly when we've hurt people that we truly love. Um, so the fact that you're struggling with this tells me that you are capable of living a better life. And living a better life is really how we forgive ourselves. We recognize, we become responsible, meaning we take action and change, and then we release it. Tammy, thoughts with that?
Oh
Because
yeah, I agree that for those of us in real recovery, like because otherwise people will go, yeah, like that doesn't really matter. I'm so over that. But like I want to kind of challenge this person. How is living in shame going to help you move forward? It doesn't. Like that actually keeps us closer to continuing to act out, because we can't tolerate all of that. And I do believe, like I shared with the people who have murdered people, and lies are not okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not minimizing any of this, but can be forgiven. And if I'm doing esteemable things, and
yeah,
Scott mentioned the steps 4 through 9 of the 12-step program are house cleaning. We
yeah,
work through those things. We can get to a different place. And part of 12 step is we don't shut the door on the past, but we're also not dwelling there.
yeah,
We understand that this is what got me here, and I want to move forward in a different way. But if we always have, one foot really, really stuck in the past, and oh, I'm so horrible, and
yeah,
like, and Dr. Rob often talks about shame is self-centered. Oh, I feel so bad about me. Well,
mhm,
I feel bad about the things that I've done to other people. That's acknowledging it. And I'm going to work on me so that I don't do those things again. That's how we change. So I would invite you to do the work. We've got lots of resources, Sex Addiction 101. If you haven't already done it, great option, to get some foundational things. But 12 steps. Scott and I'll put a little plug in. February 7th, we did our
yeah,
webinar on 12 steps. And I think with all due respect, we did a really good job of unpacking what they are and the myths. There's lots of myths about stuff, so I would invite you to check that out too. A little kudos for us, right? Okay, my CSAT absolutely wrote my essay's disclosure. She admitted to my CSAT that he has trouble expressing himself. So I put my email in there in the chat, Tami, Tami at Seeking Integrity. I won't say who said it, but I have a list of CSATs that I don't ever refer to. This is highly problematic. So not okay, not on any level. So I would, if you are willing, email me. I never say where I got the information, but I got a little, you know, like naughty list, so to speak. So,
yeah.
Okay, what's the difference between boundaries and safety and boundaries to hide or avoid?
Boundaries to hide or avoid are not boundaries.
Mhm.
Just they're those are lies and secrets. Safety is, you know, a healthy boundary is not about keeping other people out. It's about letting them in safely. If you behave in ways that are safe with me, I can let you in, and vice versa. If you behave in ways that are not safe, then I can close the door on you. Hiding and avoiding is there's that's just a lack of safety. That's an unboundary. Um, I grew up in a boundaryless house, and everything was hidden or avoided. Um, there were no healthy boundaries about, you know, how do we communicate with each other. I don't That's boundaries to hide or avoid. It's just not a boundary. It's not a healthy boundary.
No, no, that sounds like a manipulate. So if the addict is going, well, I have boundaries, and everybody needs boundaries, like that actually is, that is true. But if it's, I have boundaries, so I'm not going to tell you what my password is or whatever, then that is not on a recovery. Safety is, and we talk about this at length and have on other webinars. Debbie McRae's I point to a lot because she really
Yeah.
unpacks that well. They are absolutely about safety. What do I need for my physical safety? If you're a betrayed partner, get an STD test, even if you think it's only porn. Like lots of times it isn't. Financial safety. I cringe when I hear, the addict partner has all of the control of the finances. I've had people, Scott, who said, I can't join the betrayed partner work group, $395 for a 6-week course live facilitated because he controls all the money. I'm like, whatever, so,
Yeah.
emotional safety. What do I need for my emotional safety? And, I may need meditation. I may need to go for a walk. I need to do whatever is going to help me be regulated. So, I mean, it's across those things, but safety is about me, not about the other person. And if I'm looking to take care of me, not hide or avoid, that's a very different place. And if you're a betrayed partner and you're getting the addict saying, well, I need these boundaries, and you feel like they're hiding or avoiding, trust your gut. Okay, the next one. What is the suggested length of time you suggest for therapeutic separation if still no change? So we are really clear on these that you want two qualified professionals to help you navigate this. This is not a do-it-yourself thing, because if you're just separating, you're just separating. It's not therapeutic.
Right.
There's a reason why therapeutic separation is in there. And what are the goals? What are you looking to see? And I don't think this is, like, I cringe too when people are, we've been separated 3 years, what is the plan? So I think 60 days, 90 days maybe at the most, but like, what are you looking to see in that time frame that would show that there is change? And Matt Wheeler, not too long ago, talked about therapeutic separation. He said it's kind of like it's a try on for divorce. Like, this is what it would look like if we were divorced. And I was like, kind of. It also does give some space, if people are really dysregulated or if there's really no progress, then having that time and looking for that accountability. But have a plan, please have a plan. Okay. Um, so this one, this I was like, I've been in recovery for over 40 years, and this is kind of the miracle. I had a revelation through therapy regarding my abuse as a child, and hang on.
And how it related to
And
my addiction.
yeah,
The next
and
day I quit cold turkey, no withdrawal. I don't feel like the same person. It's jarring to say the least. This is what we call the pink cloud of recovery. Woohoo! I got problems and I'm stopping them cold turkey. Um, Pink clouds, like every cloud, will dissipate. You will come back to earth. Make sure you have support for when you come back. Enjoy the pink cloud, ride it. But make sure you got some people in your world to support you when it sort of dissipates a little, because it will, unfortunately. Um, you'll have a bad day and you'll want to pick up a cigarette or a drink or porn or whatever. Um, And that's normal. But if you have someone you can reach out to, a 12-step sponsor, a therapist, guys in your support group or your work group, then you can deal with it. But I love that you're on a pink cloud. Write it as far as you can write it. Tammy, thoughts on that?
No, I was just like, I mean, I've never heard of somebody with a miracle cure. So,
Right.
yes. So I'm with Scott. Like, yes, I have had, and lots of people, like even, I had another layer of revelation, Troy loves, I was like, oh man, I have a massive abandonment wound. Well, that's interesting, but it didn't mean I wasn't in recovery all these years, so the why is, less helpful than how am I going to continue? What do I
Yeah.
need to do? So glad you're here. We have lots of resources. I hope
Yeah.
you join those.
And we have lots of resources to help with, the abuse
Excellent.
issues,
Yeah, yeah.
particularly with Eddie and Troy
Mhm.
and various other people.
Yeah.
There's more work to be done, but I'm glad you're having a great experience with early recovery. I mean,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm not minimizing. I was just like, wow, I've
No.
never heard of that. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Great topic. Thank you for all the questions. You can email me, Tami, Tami at Seeking Integrity. If you're looking for support sessions, Scott and I and two colleagues also do those. You'll find them on Seeking Integrity. Lots of resources, but we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.